A doctor's discovery of capsules in a girl's X-ray sparks a deadly chase to dismantle a drug cartel. Like, subscribe, and hit the bell to catch our latest thrilling stories. The hospital's emergency room pulsed with chaos as Dr. Kamala Harris stared at the X-ray screen, its cold glow illuminating a horror she'd only read about in medical journals. Dozens of capsules more sinister and unnaturally uniform cluttered the stomach of 12-year-old Taylor Swift, who sat hunched on the exam table, her fingers white-knuckled around a tattered teddy bear. Her eyes, wide with fear, flickered to the man beside her. Leonardo DiCaprio, his charming smile a mask that didn't reach his predatory gaze. He'd introduced himself as her father, but his grip on Taylor's shoulder was too tight, his voice too sharp when he insisted her stomach pain was just a bug. Kamala's instincts screamed danger. She'd seen nervous patients before, but Taylor's silence was a cry for help, her every flinch under Leonardo's touch a warning. "We need an X-ray," Kamala said, her tone steady but her pulse racing. Leonardo's smile faltered, his eyes darting to the exit. "That's not necessary," he said, stepping closer, but Kamala signaled the technician to proceed, her hand brushing the panic button under the desk. As Taylor was wheeled to the imaging room, Kamala caught the girl's trembling glance back at Leonardo, who whispered something that made her recoil. The man's charm was unraveling, his fingers twitching toward his jacket pocket. Kamala's mind raced. This wasn't a concerned parent. This was a predator. In the imaging room, the X-ray machine hummed, and the screen flickered to life. Kamala's breath caught as the image-loaded capsules, packed like a grotesque constellation, filled Taylor's abdomen. Drug smuggling. She'd seen case studies, but the reality hit like a punch. This child was a mule, her body turned into a vessel for poison. "Call 911, Kamala whispered to the technician, her voice low but urgent. "Now." The technician fumbled for the phone, but Leonardo was already at the door, his facade gone. "What's taking so long?" he snarled, his hand slipping inside his jacket. Kamala stepped between him and Taylor, her heart hammering. "We're reviewing the results," she said, buying time, but Leonardo's eyes narrowed. He lunged for Taylor, yanking her arm with brutal force. "We're leaving," he barked. Kamala reacted on instinct, shoving a crash cart into his path, medical supplies crashing to the floor in a cacophony of metal and plastic. "Let her go," she shouted, grabbing a scalpel from the tray, its blade glinting under the fluorescent lights. Taylor's sob echoed as she scrambled behind Kamala, clutching her teddy bear like a lifeline. Leonardo's face twisted with rage, and he drew a concealed knife, its edge catching the light. "You're in over your head, Doctor," he growled. But Kamala held her ground, scalpel raised, her training warring with adrenaline. The door exploded in would-not security, but two masked thugs, their dark jackets blending with the shadows. One seized Taylor, dragging her toward the hall as she screamed. Kamala hurled the scalpel, its blade slicing into the thug's forearm. He roared, loosening his grip, and Taylor broke free, stumbling into Kamala's arms. The second thug charged, his fist slamming into Kamala's jaw, sending her crashing into the X-ray machine. Pain seared through her skull, but she rolled, grabbing a fire extinguisher from the wall and swinging it with all her strength. The metal connected with the thug's knees, dropping him to the floor with a sickening crunch. Alarms blared, their shrill wail drowning out the chaos as Kamala pulled Taylor behind the exam table. Leonardo bolted, shoving past the fallen thug, his footsteps pounding down the corridor. Kamala's vision blurred from the blow, but she saw his parting glare promise of vengeance. Security stormed in, their shouts filling the room as they wrestled the thugs to the ground, cuffs snapping around their wrists. Kamala knelt beside Taylor, who was curled into a ball, sobbing. "You're safe now," Kamala said, her voice soft but her mind screaming that the danger was far from over. Blood trickled from a cut on her cheek, and her hands shook as she checked Taylor for injuries. The girl's pulse was erratic, her eyes glassy with terror. "They'll come back," Taylor whispered, her voice barely audible. Kamala's heart twisted. How long had this child lived in fear? The hospital's lights flickered, and a new figure appeared in the doorway. Detective Johnny Depp, his leather jacket scuffed, his badge catching the light. "Doctor? Harris?" he asked, his eyes scanning the wreckage-overturned carts, scattered tools, and the X-ray screen still glowing with its damning evidence. Kamala nodded, catching her breath. "She's a mule," she said, voice low. Capsules in her stomach. The man Leonardo is not her father. Johnny's jaw tightened as he crouched beside Taylor, his voice gentle but urgent. We've been tracking a cartel using kids as mules. This is bigger than one girl. He stood, pulling Kamala aside as security escorted the thugs away. They'll come for her, he warned, his eyes flicking to the window where headlights flared in the parking lot. Kamala grabbed Taylor's chart, her mind racing with questions. Who was Taylor? How many other children were trapped in this nightmare? What kind of monster turned a child's body into a smuggling tool? The hospital's intercom crackled, announcing a lockdown, but it was too late. A gunshot shattered the window, glass exploding inward as Taylor screamed. Johnny Dove, shoving Kamala and Taylor behind a gurney, his pistol already drawn. "Stay down," he barked, peering into the dark parking lot where shadows moved too many too fast. Kamala's grip tightened on Taylor's hand, her other hand clutching a security baton she'd grabbed from a fallen guard. The hospital's halls echoed with footsteps, deliberate, closing in. Johnny's eyes met hers, his voice low. "They're not just here for her, they're here for us." A shadow loomed in the corridor, and Kamala's heart pounded. This wasn't a routine night in the ER. This was a war, and the enemy was already inside. As the lockdown sirens wailed, Kamala shielded Taylor, her resolve hardening. Whatever it took, she'd protect this girl and bring down the monsters who'd done this to her. But the footsteps grew louder, and a chilling realization hit. Leonardo hadn't fled. He was still here, somewhere in the hospital, waiting for his moment to strike. The hospital corridor reeked of antiseptic and fear as Dr. Kamala Harris gripped Taylor Swift's hand, the girl's trembling fingers cold against her own. Detective Johnny Depp crouched beside the overturned gurney, his pistol steady, eyes scanning the shattered window where glass shards glinted under flickering lights. The gunshot's echo still rang in Kamala's ears, a stark warning that the cartel wasn't done. Taylor's whisper, "They'll kill me," hung heavy, her small frame shaking as she clutched her teddy bear. Johnny's voice cut through the tension, low and urgent. "We move now. They're circling." Kamala nodded, her jaw bruised from the ER brawl, her mind racing. Leonardo DiCaprio, the man who'd posed as Taylor's father, was still out there, lurking in the hospital's maze of halls. The lockdown sirens wailed, but they felt like a trap, boxing them in with enemies closing fast. Johnny led the way, motioning Kamala and Taylor toward a service elevator at the corridor's end. Footsteps too heavy, too deliberate-echoed from the stairwell, and Kamala's pulse spiked. She tightened her grip on the security baton, its weight a small comfort against the unknown. The elevator doors slid open, and they piled in, Johnny slamming the button for the basement. "Safe house," he muttered, checking his phone. "We'll regroup there." The descent was agonizing, the hum of the elevator drowned by Taylor's shallow breaths. Kamala knelt, brushing a strand of hair from the girl's face. "We're getting you out," she promised, but Taylor's eyes were distant, haunted by horrors Kamala could only imagine. The doors opened to a dimly lit basement, pipes hissing along the walls. Johnny moved first, gun raised, sweeping the shadows. A clatter rang out a dropped tool or something worse. Kamala pulled Taylor close, her heart pounding as Johnny signaled them to follow. They reached a maintenance exit, the night air biting as they slipped into an alley behind the hospital. Headlights flared at the alley's mouth, and Johnny cursed, shoving them behind a dumpster. A black SUV screeched to a stop, disgorging 3 Figures cartel enforcers, their silhouettes bristling with weapons. "Stay down," Johnny whispered, but Taylor's gasp betrayed them. A thug's head snapped toward the sound, and bullets tore through the dumpster, metal screeching as Kamala shielded Taylor's body. Johnny returned fire, his shots precise, dropping one thug with a grunt. "Run!" he barked, and Kamala hauled Taylor toward a side street, her legs burning as gunfire chased them. They ducked into a derelict warehouse, its rusted doors slamming shut behind them. Johnny followed, blood seeping from a graze on his arm. "They're tracking us," he said, reloading. Leonardo's not working alone. Kamala's mind raced. How did they find them so fast? She turned to Taylor, who was curled against a crate, her teddy bear stained with alley grime. "Taylor, you said they. Who are they?" The girl's lips quivered, but she spoke, her voice a broken whisper. "The men. They took me from the shelter, said I'd get a family, but they put things inside me. They hurt me." Kamala's stomach churned, rage mixing with grief. Taylor's words painted a nightmare. A cartel preying on vulnerable children, turning them into disposable mules. Johnny knelt beside her, his voice soft. "Did you see anyone else? A place? A name?" Taylor's eyes flickered with fear. "A house. By the docks. They called it the Nest." Johnny's face hardened. "I know it. Cartel safe house. We hit it tonight." Kamala grabbed his arm. "Tonight? She's traumatized, and we're outnumbered." But Johnny's eyes burned with resolve. "They're moving product now. We wait. Taylor's dead and so are the others." Kamala swallowed her fear, nodding. They needed answers, and the Nest was their only lead. Hours later, under a moonless sky, they crouched outside a dilapidated mansion by the city's docks, its windows boarded, its walls crawling with ivy. Johnny had called in a favor, securing tactical gear and a burner phone. Kamala, in a bulletproof vest, felt out of place but resolute. Taylor stayed in a police van nearby, under guard, her teddy bear her only comfort. Johnny picked the lock, and they slipped inside, the air thick with mold and menace. The Nest was a labyrinth of crates and shadows, crates stacked with sealed packages drugs, Kamala guessed, her nausea rising. Voices echoed from a back room, and Johnny motioned her to stay low. They crept closer, peering through a cracked door. Two men counted cash, their guns within reach, but no sign of Leonardo. Kamala's heart sank as they walked into a dead end. A floorboard creaked behind them, and Kamala spun, baton raised, only to freeze. A young woman stood there, her face half hidden in shadow, her eyes fierce but not hostile. "You're here for the kids," she whispered. "So am I." Johnny's gun stayed trained on her. "Who are you?" The woman stepped into the light, her voice steady. "Malala Yousafzai. I've been tracking this cartel for years." Kamala's mind raced. Malala, the activist? Here? Before they could question her, a shout rang out from the back room. The men had heard them. Johnny shoved Kamala behind a crate as gunfire erupted, bullets splintering wood. Malala dove beside them, pulling a knife from her boot. "They're moving the kids tonight," she hissed. "We stop them now, or they're gone." Kamala's heart pounded as she gripped her baton, the chaos swallowing her fear. Johnny kicked over a crate, drawing fire, and Malala sprinted toward a side door, motioning them to follow. They burst into a loading bay, where a van idled, its back open. Inside, 3 children, bound and gagged, stared with wide, terrified eyes. Kamala lunged for the van, but a thug emerged, his shotgun roaring. Johnny tackled him, the two grappling as the weapon skidded across the concrete. Kamala untied the kids, her hands shaking, but a new sound froze Hera's low chuckle from the shadows. Leonardo stepped forward, a pistol in hand, his smile chilling. "You're persistent, Doctor," he said, aiming at her chest. Kamala stood her ground, shielding the children, her baton useless against his gun. Malala's knife flashed, grazing Leonardo's arm, but he fired, the bullet grazing Kamala's shoulder. Pain seared through her, but she didn't falter. Johnny disarmed his opponent, turning to fire at Leonardo, who vanished into the dark. The van's engine roared, and Malala shouted, "They're getting away!" Kamala pushed the kids to safety, her vision blurring from blood loss, as Johnny and Malala gave chase. The warehouse trembled with the sound of screeching tires, and Kamala collapsed beside the children, her resolve unbroken. This was no longer just about Taylor. It was about every child the cartel had broken, and she'd tear their empire apart to save them. "Doctor." Kamala Harris winced as she pressed a blood-soaked cloth to her shoulder, the graze from Leonardo DiCaprio's bullet burning like fire. The warehouse's loading bay reeked of diesel and fear, the rescued children huddling behind her, their eyes wide with terror. Detective Johnny Depp reloaded his pistol, his face grim as he scanned the shadows where Leonardo had vanished. Malala Yousafzai, the enigmatic activist who'd joined their fight, crouched beside the idling van, her knife still slick with Leonardo's blood. The cartel's Nest was compromised, its crates of drugs exposed, but the screech of tires outside signaled their enemies weren't done. "We need to move," Johnny said, his voice low, urgent. "They'll burn this place to cover their tracks." Kamala nodded, her vision swimming from pain but her resolve ironclad. She helped the 3 children, 2 boys and a girl, none older than Teninto, the police van where Taylor Swift waited, her teddy bear clutched tight. Taylor's eyes met Kamala's, a flicker of courage breaking through her trauma. "I can help," she whispered, her voice shaky but determined. Kamala squeezed her hand, pride warring with fear. This girl, used as a mule, was fighting back. Johnny slammed the van's doors, barking orders to the police escort. Get them to the safe house. No stops. But as the van pulled away, headlights flared at the warehouse's entrancia convoy of black SUVs, cartel enforcers spilling out like wolves. Malala cursed, diving behind a crate as gunfire erupted, bullets chewing through the warehouse walls. Kamala shoved Taylor and the children down, her heart pounding as she grabbed a fallen thug's pistol, its weight foreign in her hands. Johnny returned fire, his shots dropping 2 enforcers, but the odds were brutal. "We're pinned," he shouted, blood seeping from his grazed arm. Malala sprinted to a side exit, motioning them to follow. "There's a truck out back. Move." Kamala herded the children, Taylor gripping her hand. As they dodged bullets and splintered crates, they burst into the night, piling into a battered pickup truck. Johnny hot-wired it, the engine roaring to life as the cartel's SUVs gave chase. The city's docks blurred past, neon lights streaking as Kamala clung to the passenger seat. The children crouched in the back. Taylor's voice cut through the chaos. "They're behind us." Kamala glanced back 3 SUVs, their windows glinting as enforcers leaned out, guns blazing. Bullets pinged off the truck's frame, and Johnny swerved, tires screaming on wet asphalt. "Hold on," he yelled, veering onto a highway ramp. The chase tore through the city, weaving through traffic, horns blaring as civilian cars spun out of the way. Kamala's shoulder throbbed, but she forced herself to focus, checking the children. The youngest boy sobbed, his face buried in his sister's shoulder, but Taylor was alert, scanning the road. "There's a turn ahead," she said, pointing to a narrow alley. "It's tight. They won't fit." Kamala marveled at her clarity. Trauma hadn't broken her. Johnny took the turn, the truck scraping walls as the SUVs skidded, one crashing into a dumpster with a metallic crunch. But the others kept coming, relentless. Malala, in the truck bed, hurled a crowbar at an SUV's windshield, shattering it. The vehicle swerved, buying them seconds. Kamala's mind raced. The cartel's reach was vast, their resources endless. How many children had they exploited? The nest was just one hub. Johnny's burner phone buzzed and he answered, his face darkening. "Backup's delayed. We're on our own." Kamala's stomach sank, but Taylor's voice steadied her. "The docks. There's a boat. I heard them talk about it." Johnny glanced at Kamala, a silent question. She nodded. "It's our shot." They barreled toward the waterfront, the SUVs closing in. The truck skidded to a stop near a pier, where a sleek yacht bobbed, its deck guarded by 2 cartel thugs. Johnny and Malala moved first, silent and lethal, disarming the guards in seconds. Kamala ushered the children aboard, her pistol shaking in her hand. The yacht's engine roared as Johnny took the helm, but the SUVs arrived, enforcers swarming the pier. Bullets strafed the water, and Kamala dove, shielding Taylor as glass shattered above. Malala cut the mooring lines, and the yacht lurched forward, outpacing the gunfire. But the relief was fleeting. A speedboat roared from the shadows, cartel enforcers aboard, their weapons trained on the yacht. Johnny pushed the throttle, the boat rocking as waves crashed. Kamala's heart sank. Then Taylor pointed to a flare gun under the dash. "Use it," she urged. Kamala grabbed it, firing a blazing arc into the speedboat's path. The flare ignited fuel on its deck, a fireball erupting as the boat veered, crashing into the pier. The children cheered, but Kamala's relief was cut short. Malala, checking the yacht's radio, froze. "This was too easy," she said, her voice tight. "They let us take the boat." Johnny's eyes narrowed, and Kamala's blood ran cold. A tracker. The cartel knew their location. Before they could react, a voice crackled over the radio. Leonardo's, smooth and venomous. "You're carrying my product, Doctor. Return it, or the kids die." Kamala's gaze snapped to the children, then to Taylor, who clutched her stomach, her face pale. The capsules. They were still inside her, a ticking bomb. Johnny slammed the console, cursing. "He's bluffing." But Malala's eyes met Kamala's, a grim truth passing between them. The cartel didn't bluff. As the yacht sped into the night, a betrayal surfaced. One of the rescued children, the older boy, slipped a knife from his pocket, his eyes cold. "I'm sorry," he whispered, lunging for Taylor. Kamala tackled him, the blade grazing her arm, pain flaring as she pinned him. "Who sent you?" she demanded, but the boy's silence was answer enough. The cartel had planted him, a failsafe among their victims. Johnny restrained him, but the damage was done. Trust shattered, the group fractured. The yacht rocked on dark waters, the city's lights fading as Leonardo's threat echoed. Kamala bandaged her arm, her resolve hardening. The cartel's reach was deeper than they'd imagined, but she'd fight to her last breath to protect Taylor and the others. The boat's engine hummed, but the silence aboard was deafening. They were free, for now, but the cartel was closing in, and their traitor had just shown his face. The yacht's engine thrummed as it cut through black waves, the city's lights a distant memory. "Doctor." Kamala Harris pressed a makeshift bandage to her arm, the knife wound from the traitor boy's attack stinging with every heartbeat. Blood seeped through, but she ignored it, her eyes fixed on Taylor Swift, who sat curled against the cabin wall, her teddy bear clutched tight. The other children were still trembling from their rescue huddled nearby, their trust shattered after the boy's betrayal. Detective Johnny Depp stood at the helm, his face etched with fury as he scanned the horizon for cartel boats. Malala Yousafzai, the unexpected ally, checked the radio, her knife back in its sheath but her posture tense. Leonardo DiCaprio's voice still echoed from the radio, his threat chilling. "Return the product, the capsules in Taylor's body, the children die." Kamala's stomach churned. The traitor boy, now bound in the hold, was proof the cartel's reach infected even their victims. "We can't keep running," Kamala said, her voice hoarse. "They're tracking us." Johnny's jaw tightened. "The yacht's clean. I checked for trackers." But Malala's eyes darkened, her voice low. "It's not the boat, it's her." She nodded toward Taylor, who flinched. Kamala's heart sank. The capsules, a sickening possibility hit. Were they tagged, broadcasting their location? Johnny cursed, slamming the console. "We need a surgeon, now." But the nearest safe hospital was hours away, and the cartel was closing in. Kamala knelt beside Taylor, her voice soft. "We'll get them out, I promise." Taylor's eyes, glassy with fear, met hers. "They said if I told anyone they'd hurt my sister." Kamala's breath caught. A sister, another victim, somewhere out there. Before she could press further, Malala spoke, her voice heavy. "I was like her once." The cabin fell silent, the engines hummed the only sound. Malala's gaze was distant, her words deliberate. "I was 13, taken from my village. They used me the same way, capsules, threats, lies. I escaped, but not before they took everything." She pulled up her sleeve, revealing scars crisscrossing her arm, a map of survival. Taylor's eyes widened, a flicker of connection breaking through her fear. "You got away," she whispered. Malala nodded. "And you will too." Kamala's chest tightened. Malala's past mirrored Taylor's, a bond forged in pain. But the moment was cut short. The radio crackled, and Leonardo's voice slithered through. "Dr. Harris, let's make this simple. Bring the girl to the old mill by dawn, or I send men for her sister." Kamala's blood ran cold. He knew about the sister. Johnny grabbed the radio, his voice venomous. "You're a dead man, DiCaprio." But Leonardo laughed, the sound chilling. "You're out of time. Check the hold." Dread gripped Kamala as Johnny sprinted below deck, Malala following. Kamala stayed with Taylor, her pistol ready, the children's whimpers filling the cabin. Moments later, Johnny returned, his face ashen. "The boy's gone." He cut the ropes. Malala's knife was out, her eyes scanning the shadows. He's signaling them. The yacht lurched, a grinding screech echoing from below a sabotage. Water roared in, the boat tilting as Johnny fought the helm. "We're sinking," he shouted. Kamala grabbed the children, her wounded arms screaming as she hauled them to the lifeboat. Malala cut the ropes, and they dropped into the churning sea, rain lashing their faces as a storm broke overhead. The yacht sank, its lights swallowed by the waves. They rowed toward a forested shore, lightning illuminating a derelict mill in the distance. The rendezvous Leonardo demanded. Kamala's mind raced. Was it a trap, or a chance to end this? They reached land, the children shivering as they stumbled through mud and thorns. The mill loomed, its rusted walls groaning in the wind. Johnny scouted ahead, his gun drawn, while Malala guarded the rear. Kamala kept Taylor close, her resolve wavering. Leonardo's offer trade Taylor for her sister was a devil's bargain, but the thought of another child suffering gnawed at her. Inside the mill, shadows danced, machinery creaking like ghosts. A phone buzzed in Kamala's pocketa burner, left by the traitor boy. She answered, and Leonardo's voice was smooth, taunting. "You're a healer, Doctor. Save one girl, or lose them both. Your choice." Kamala's grip tightened, rage boiling. "I'm coming for you," she said, hanging up. But doubt lingered. Could she risk Taylor? Johnny returned, his face grim. "It's a setup. Men are circling the mill." Before they could plan, an explosion rocked the structure, flames licking the walls as cartel enforcers stormed in, their gunfire deafening. Kamala dove, shielding Taylor as bullets sparked off rusted metal. Johnny returned fire, dropping 2 thugs, while Malala's knife flashed, felling another. The children screamed, and Kamala dragged them behind a machine, her arm bleeding anew. Taylor's voice cut through the chaos. "I can't let them take my sister." She bolted toward a side exit, forcing Kamala to chase her into the storm-drenched forest. Rain blinded them, branches clawing as they ran, the cartel's shouts close behind. Johnny and Malala caught up, but the enforcers were relentless, their flashlights slicing the dark. A thug tackled Kamala, his weight crushing her into the mud. She fought, clawing his face, her baton cracking his skull. Taylor screamed as another grabbed her, but Malala's knife found his throat, blood mixing with rain. They stumbled into a clearing, the mill's flames a distant glow. Johnny's gun clicked empty, and the cartel closed in, their leader stepping forward, not Leonardo but a new face, cold and commanding. "Give us the girl," he said, his pistol aimed at Kamala's chest. Taylor stood defiant, her voice steady. "I'm not their product." Kamala's heart swelled. Taylor's courage was their weapon, but the leader's smile was cruel, and his men raised their guns. Lightning flashed, and a new Sound Raider helicopter, its spotlight blinding the cartel. Was it rescue or another trap? Kamala shielded Taylor, her body aching but her will unbroken. The cartel's empire was vast, but she'd burn it down to save these children, even if it cost her everything. Rain lashed Dr. Kamala Harris's face as she shielded Taylor Swift in the storm-soaked clearing, the cartel's guns glinting under the helicopter's spotlight. The aircraft hovered, its roar drowning out the thunder, but its markings were unclear, friend or foe. Detective Johnny Depp stood braced, his empty pistol useless, while Malala Yousafzai gripped her knife, her eyes locked on the cartel leader who'd cornered them. His cold smile promised death, his pistol aimed at Kamala's chest. "Last chance," he snarled. "The girl, or you all die." Taylor's hand trembled in Kamala's, but her voice was steel. "I'm not going back." Kamala's heart swelled. Taylor's defiance was a spark in the dark. Before the leader could fire, the helicopter's spotlight swung, blinding him. Ropes dropped, and figures in tactical gear rappelled down, their rifles barking. The cartel enforcers scattered, bullets ripping through the rain as the leader dove for cover. Johnny tackled Kamala and Taylor behind a fallen log, Malala diving beside them. "Feds," Johnny shouted, relief in his voice. The newcomers were federal agents, their shouts cutting through the chaos as they engaged the cartel. Kamala's shoulder and arm throbbed, blood mixing with mud, but she kept Taylor close, the other children huddling nearby. The cartel leader fired wildly, retreating into the forest, his men falling under the agent's assault. An agent approached, his badge flashing. "Agent Pitt, you're safe now." But Kamala's relief was fleeting. Leonardo DiCaprio was still out there, and Taylor's sister was unaccounted for. Pitt's radio crackled with intel, a cartel lab hidden in the hills, where children were prepped as mules. "We hit it now," Johnny said, his eyes fierce. Kamala hesitated, glancing at Taylor, whose capsules were a ticking bomb. "She needs surgery," Kamala argued, but Taylor's voice cut through. "My sister's there. I know it." Her certainty was unshakable, and Kamala nodded, resolve hardening. They'd save them all. The feds provided a van, and the group Kamala, Johnny, Malala, Taylor, and the rescued children raced through the storm, the hills looming under lightning's glare. Pitt briefed them en route. The lab was a fortress, guarded by cartel elites, its purpose horrific children drugged and surgically implanted with capsules for smuggling. Kamala's stomach churned, her medical oath clashing with rage. They reached a ridge overlooking the lab, a concrete bunker nestled in a valley, its lights flickering through the rain. Pitt's team fanned out, but Johnny's plan was bolder. Infiltrate, sabotage, Rescue. Malala volunteered to scout, her stealth unmatched, while Kamala insisted on joining, her medical skills vital. Taylor, left with Pitt's medic, grabbed Kamala's hand. "Bring her back," she whispered, her eyes pleading for her sister. Kamala promised, her heart heavy. They descended, mud slick underfoot, the bunker's hum growing louder. Malala picked a side entrance's lock, and they slipped inside, the air thick with chemicals. The lab was a nightmare: sterile tables, IV drips, and monitors displaying vital signs. Cages lined the walls, holding a dozen children, their eyes hollow. Kamala's breath-caught girl, maybe 10, resembled Taylor, her hair matted, her wrists bound. "That's her," Malala whispered, confirming Taylor's sister, Lily. Johnny disabled the cameras, but a guard rounded the corner, his rifle rising. Malala's knife flashed, silencing him before he could scream, but the scuffle drew attention. Alarms blared, red lights pulsing as boots thundered. "Move!" Johnny hissed, prying open a cage. Kamala worked fast, freeing Lily and the others, their frail bodies trembling. Lily's eyes lit up, whispering, "Taylor?" Kamala nodded, tears burning. "She's waiting." But the reunion would have to wait. Cartel guards stormed the lab, their gunfire deafening. Johnny returned fire, his stolen rifle blazing, while Malala hurled a chair, shattering a guard's visor. Kamala ushered the children toward the exit, her wounded arm screaming as she carried a boy too weak to run. The lab's machinery sparked, chemicals igniting as bullets struck tanks. "It's gonna blow," Johnny shouted, shoving Kamala forward. They reached the entrance, but a guard blocked it, his shotgun roaring. Malala dove, her knife sinking into his thigh, but he fired, the blast catching her chest. She collapsed, blood pooling, her breath ragged. Kamala screamed, dragging Malala as Johnny cleared the path. The children ran, Lily leading, her courage mirroring Taylor's. Outside, Pitt's team provided cover, their rifles cutting down pursuers. Kamala knelt beside Malala, ripping open her vest to assess the wound shotgun pellets, deep, critical. "Stay with me," Kamala pleaded, applying pressure, her hands slick with blood. Malala's eyes fluttered, her voice weak. "Get the kids out." Johnny pulled Kamala up, his face grim. "We can't stay." The lab exploded behind them, flames lighting the valley as they fled to the vans. Lily clung to Kamala, whispering, "Where's Taylor?" Kamala's heart ached. Taylor was safe, but Malala's life hung by a thread. The Fed's medic worked on Malala, but her pulse was fading. Kamala's medical training kicked in. She barked orders, stabilizing Malala's breathing, but the damage was severe. The vans raced to a safe house, the children's sobs filling the air. Taylor ran to Lily, their embrace shattering Kamala's composure. The sisters were reunited, but at what cost? Johnny scoured the lab's stolen data, his face darkening. This wasn't their only lab. There's more kids. Kamala's resolve hardened. Malala's sacrifice wouldn't be in vain. But as they reached the safe house, a new threat loomed. A burner phone slipped into Kamala's pocket during the chaos, buzzed. She answered, and Leonardo's voice was ice. "You took my product, Doctor. I'll take everything you love." The line went dead, and Kamala's blood ran cold. The safe house's lights flickered, and shadows moved outside. Johnny drew his gun. Taylor clutched Lily, and Kamala stood over Malala's stretcher, her fists clenched. The cartel's chain was breaking, but their vengeance was just beginning. They'd saved a dozen children, but Leonardo's empire was vast, and he'd strike where it hurt most. Kamala met Johnny's gaze, her voice steady. "We end this." The safe house doors rattled, and the fight for survival roared back to life. The safe house's flickering lights cast jagged shadows as Dr. Kamala Harris stood over Malala Yousafzai's stretcher, her hands slick with blood from stabilizing the activist's gunshot wounds. The air was thick with tension. The rescued children, Taylor Swift, her sister Lily, and a dozen others huddled in a corner, their eyes wide with fear. Detective Johnny Depp gripped his pistol, his gaze fixed on the rattling doors, where cartel enforcers lurked outside. Leonardo DiCaprio's chilling phone call echoed in Kamala's mind. "I'll take everything you love." The safe house, meant to be a sanctuary, was a trap, and the cartel's net was tightening. Taylor clutched Lily, her voice a whisper. "They're coming for me." Kamala knelt, her wounded arm throbbing but her resolve unshaken. Not while I'm here, she said, squeezing Taylor's hand. But the truth gnawed at earthy capsules in Taylor's stomach were a death sentence, and Leonardo's master was still a shadow. Johnny's burner phone buzzed. A message from Agent Pitt. Intel from the lab's data pinpointed a cartel shipment at the city's main dockyard. Tonight. That's our shot, Johnny said, his voice grim. We hit them. We find the head of this snake. Kamala hesitated, glancing at Malala, whose breathing was shallow. She needs a hospital, she argued. But Malala's eyes fluttered open, her voice weak but fierce. End this. Kamala's heart clenched. Malala's sacrifice demanded action. They moved fast, the feds securing Malala and the children in a reinforced bunker, while Kamala, Johnny, and a small tactical team raced to the dockyard. The storm had eased, but the air was heavy, the docks a maze of cranes and containers under sodium lights. Pitt's intel was precise. A freighter, the Nighthawk, was loaded with cartel product drugs and possibly more children. Kamala's stomach churned at the thought. They split up, Johnny and Pitt taking the perimeter, Kamala sticking to the shadows with a Fed named Jolie. The dockyard hummed with activity. Cartel guards patrolled, their radios crackling. Kamala's medical kit doubled as a disguise, her vest hiding a stolen pistol. She crept toward the freighter, her pulse racing as she overheard a guard mention the boss arriving. Could it be Leonardo? Jolie signaled a guard post ahead, and Kamala held her breath as they neutralized the lookout, his body slumping silently. They boarded the Nighthawk, its deck slick with salt water, containers stacked like a fortress. Below deck, the air was stifling, the stench of chemicals overwhelming. Kamala's flashlight caught a glint cages, like the lab, but these held 6 children, drugged and bound. Her heart shattered, but a noise froze her. A low chuckle from the shadows. Leonardo stepped forward, his pistol gleaming, but he wasn't alone. A taller figure emerged, his presence commanding, his voice clipped and familiar. "You've been a nuisance, Doctor," he said. Kamala's blood ran cold. Elon Musk, the elusive billionaire, his face twisted with menace. "You?" Johnny's voice hissed from behind, his gun trained on Elon. Pitt's team closed in, but Elon's smile was unshaken. "You're too late," he said, gesturing to the children. "My empire's global. These are just pawns." Kamala's rage boiled pawns. She lunged for a cage, prying it open, but Leonardo fired, the bullet grazing her thigh. Pain seared, but she freed a girl, shoving her toward Jolie. The dockyard erupted, cartel enforcers storming the ship as Pitt's team fought back, gunfire lighting the night. Johnny tackled Leonardo, their brawl crashing through crates, blood and splinters flying. Kamala dragged the children to cover, her leg buckling, but Elon's voice cut through the chaos. The girl swift seized the key. Kamala's heart stopped. Taylor, safe in the bunker, was the target. Elon's plan wasn't just drugs, it was leverage. The capsules in Taylor's body weren't just product. They were a message, a warning to anyone who defied him. Kamala's mind raced. She'd left Taylor with Pitt's medic, but Elon's reach was vast. She grabbed a radio, screaming for Pitt to check the bunker. Static answered, then Pitt's voice, panicked. "They're hitting the safe house." Kamala's world tilted, but she acted fast, rigging a fuel drum with a flare from the ship's stores. "Johnny, cover me," she shouted, limping to the deck. She lit the flare, tossing it into the drum as cartel guards closed in. The explosion rocked the freighter, flames scattering the enforcers, giving Pitt's team the edge. Johnny pinned Leonardo, his fist breaking the man's jaw, but Elon slipped away, vanishing into the smoke. Kamala freed the last child, her vision blurring from blood loss, but the radio crackled. Pitt, breathless. "Taylor's safe," but they took Lily. Kamala's heart sank. Lily, Taylor's sister, was Elon's new bargaining chip. The dockyard battle raged, feds overwhelming the cartel's forces, but the victory was hollow. Leonardo, bloodied and cuffed, laughed through broken teeth. "You can't stop him. Musk owns this city." Johnny slammed him against a container, but Kamala's focus was the children, their frail bodies trembling as she checked their pulses. Jolie radioed for medics, but Kamala's thoughts were with Taylor and Lily. The safe house breach meant Elon's network was deeper than Pitt's intel suggested. Cops, feds, maybe even hospitals were compromised. As the feds secured the ship, Kamala collapsed against a crate, her wounds screaming, her mind racing. Johnny knelt beside her, his arm bandaged, his eyes haunted. "We got 6 kids out. But Lily," he trailed off, guilt heavy. Kamala's fist clenched. "We'll find her." But the cost was crushing. Malala's life hung by a thread. Lily was gone, and Elon's escape meant the war wasn't over. The dockyard's lights flickered, sirens wailing as medics arrived. Kamala refused a stretcher, her gaze fixed on the horizon where Elon had fled. Taylor's courage had sparked this fight, but Elon's empire was a hydra cut. One head, and another grew. The children's sobs echoed, and Kamala's resolve hardened. She'd saved lives tonight, but the cartel's mastermind was still out there, and he'd struck at their heart. As dawn broke, the freighter smoldered, and Kamala stood, bloodied but unbowed. Elon Musk had unmasked himself, but his empire would fall. She'd make sure of it, even if it tore her apart. "Doctor." Kamala Harris stood on the smoldering dockyard, her thigh and arm wounds pulsing with pain as medics swarmed the freighter Nighthawk. The rescued children shivered under blankets, their eyes haunted, but Taylor Swift's absence gnawed at Kamala's heart safe in the bunker, yet her sister Lily was now Elon Musk's hostage. Detective Johnny Depp, his arm bandaged, pored over the lab's stolen data with Agent Pitt, their faces grim. Leonardo DiCaprio, cuffed and bloodied, smirked from a Fed's custody, his taunt ringing, "Musk owns this city." Kamala's fists clenched. Elon, the cartel's mastermind, had slipped away, but the data held the key to his empire. Pitt's team had decrypted files revealing a network of labs, payoffs to officials, and a final shipment planned tonight in a warehouse district. "We end this now," Kamala said, her voice steel despite her injuries. Johnny nodded, but his eyes betrayed doubt. Malala Yousafzai, their fierce ally, was in surgery, her life uncertain. Taylor's courage had sparked this fight, and Kamala wouldn't let it falter. They rendezvoused at a federal command post, where Pitt assembled a strike team. The data pointed to a derelict warehouse, a hub for Elon's last stand. Kamala insisted on joining, her medical skills vital for any child victims, though Pitt hesitated. "You're a civilian, Harris." She met his gaze, unyielding. "I'm their only shot." Johnny backed her, and they geared up vests, radios, and Kamala's borrowed pistol, its weight a grim reminder of the war they'd entered. Taylor, brought from the bunker, demanded to help. "Lily's out there," she said, her voice steady despite the capsules still in her stomach, a surgical risk until the fight was over. Kamala's heart ached, but Taylor's resolve was unshakable. Pitt arranged for Taylor to record a testimony, her words a weapon against the cartel. In a stark room, Taylor faced a camera, her teddy bear beside her. "They took me from a shelter, promised a family. They put things inside me, said I'd die if I told. But I'm telling now." Her voice broke, but she pushed on, naming Leonardo, describing the nest, the lab, the fear. Kamala wiped tears, pride swelling. Taylor was reclaiming her voice. The testimony, broadcast to federal channels, would pressure corrupt officials and rally support. But time was short. The strike team rolled out, Kamala and Johnny in a tactical van, the city's neon blur giving way to rusted warehouses. The target Lumida sprawling complex, its windows dark but humming with hidden life. Pitt's drone confirmed heat signatures, guards, machinery, and faint child-sized shapes. Kamala's stomach churned. Lily was inside, along with others. They breached silently, Pitt's team disabling perimeter guards with tasers. Kamala and Johnny slipped through a loading dock, the air thick with oil and menace. Inside, crates towered, labeled with fake company logos, but reeking of chemicals. A whimper echoed, and Kamala's flashlight found a cage. Lily, bruised but alive, her eyes lighting up. "Taylor sent you," she whispered. Kamala freed her, but the reunion was cut short. Alarms blared, red lights pulsing as cartel enforcers swarmed, their gunfire deafening. Johnny returned fire, his rifle sparking, while Kamala shielded Lily, her pistol shaking but steady. Pitt's team pushed forward, but a trap sprang explosives rigged to the crates, timers ticking. "They're collapsing the place," Johnny shouted, shoving Kamala toward an exit. She dragged Lily, her wounds screaming, but a figure blocked their path. Elon's lieutenant, a scarred man named Downey, his shotgun raised. "Musk sends regards," he sneered, firing. Kamala dove, the blast grazing her vest, pain exploding as she hit the floor. Johnny tackled Downey, their brawl smashing through crates, blood and debris flying. Lily screamed, and Kamala crawled to her, firing at an approaching thug, her bullet finding his shoulder. The warehouse shook, flames licking the walls as explosives detonated, collapsing beams. Pitt's voice crackled over the radio. "Get out now." Kamala hauled Lily toward a shattered window, Johnny dragging Downey's unconscious body. They stumbled into the night, the warehouse erupting behind them, a fireball lighting the sky. Pitt's team extracted 5 more children, their bodies frail but alive. Lily clung to Kamala, sobbing for Taylor, and Kamala promised a reunion, her voice hoarse. But the victory was tainted. Downey's taunt lingered. Musk's untouchable. The feds secured the site, but Elon's absence gnawed at Kamala. The data and Taylor's testimony had exposed his network, toppling labs and arresting officials, but the mastermind was a ghost. Johnny scoured Downey's burner phone, finding a coded message. Plan B, Pier 17. Kamala's heart sank. Another trap, or Lily's final chance. They raced to the pier, Kamala's wounds slowing her but her will unbroken. The pier was deserted, save for a lone container, its door ajar. Johnny approached, gun raised, but a child's cry stopped him. Inside, a girl, not Lily, sat bound, a bomb strapped to her chest, its timer at 30 seconds. Kamala's medical instincts kicked in. She disarmed it, her hands steady despite the pain, freeing the girl. But the container's radio crackled, Elon's voice smooth. "You're predictable, Doctor. Check the water." Johnny spun, spotting a speedboat vanishing into the dawn. Elon was gone, but the girl's rescue was a spark of hope. Back at the command post, Taylor and Lily reunited, their embrace shattering Kamala's composure. The cartel's network was crumbling, but Elon's escape cast a shadow. Kamala bandaged her wounds, Johnny at her side, his eyes haunted. "We got dozens of kids out," he said, but the cost, Malala's fight for life, Lily's trauma, their own scars weighed heavy. Taylor's testimony aired, sparking outrage, and the feds vowed to hunt Elon. Kamala met Taylor's gaze, her voice firm. "You did this. You broke them." Taylor nodded, her teddy bear stained but her spirit intact. The warehouse's ashes marked a turning point, but Elon's final trap waited somewhere in the dark. Kamala stood, bloodied but resolute, ready to face it for Taylor, Lily, and every child they'd saved. Dr. Kamala Harris's breath caught as she gripped the burner phone, its screen glowing with Elon Musk's taunting message. "I'm not done." The federal command post buzzed with agents, but the weight of their war against the cartel pressed heavy. Dozens of children saved. Yet Elon, the mastermind, was a ghost. Her wounds throbbed, bandages tight under her jacket, but Taylor Swift's televised testimony had shattered his empire, exposing labs, toppling corrupt officials, and freeing caged victims. Taylor, safe with her sister Lily, stood nearby, her teddy bear worn but cherished, her eyes bright with hard-won courage. Detective Johnny Depp, his arms slung, scoured the final decrypted data, his face etched with the cost. Malala Yousafzai, their fierce ally, clung to life in the ICU. Kamala's resolve burned. Elon's escape wouldn't undo their victory. Agent Pitt's voice cut through, urgent. "We've got to hide this last safe house, a penthouse downtown. He's there now." Kamala's pulse spiked. This was their chance. Johnny's eyes met hers, a silent vow. They geared up, Kamala ignoring Pitt's protests, her pistol heavy but necessary. Taylor, overhearing, grabbed Kamala's arm. "I'm coming," she said, her voice fierce. "For Lily, for all of them." Kamala hesitated, but Taylor's strength was undeniable. Pitt relented, assigning her to a secure van with Lily, under guard. The strike team rolled out, the city's skyline looming as they sped to the penthouse, a glass tower gleaming with menace. Drones confirmed Elon's presence guards, tech, a fortress in the sky. Kamala's heart pounded as they breached the lobby, feds neutralizing security with silent precision. Elevators shot them to the top, the air crackling with tension. The penthouse doors blasted open, and chaos erupted. Cartel elites, armed with automatics, fired from marble cover. Kamala dove behind a column, her pistol barking, dropping a guard as Johnny's rifle blazed, his shot surgical. Pitt's team pushed forward, but Elon's voice boomed over speakers, cold and mocking. "You're too late, Doctor. My legacy's untouchable." Kamala's rage flared. She spotted him, a silhouette on a balcony, flanked by drones buzzing like wasps. Johnny charged, but a trap sprang. Panels slid open, releasing gas, its acrid bite choking the air. Kamala's vision swam, but she crawled, firing at a drone, its explosion sparking flames. Pitt's shout pierced the haze. "He's got a chopper." Kamala stumbled to the balcony, rain lashing from a sudden storm, and saw Elon boarding a helicopter. Lily bound at his feet. Taylor's scream echoed from the van's radio. She'd hacked it, her voice desperate. "Save her!" Kamala's wound screamed, but she sprinted, leaping onto the chopper's skid as it lifted. Elon's eyes widened, his pistol rising, but Kamala tackled him, her fist cracking his jaw. Lily sobbed, and Kamala cut her ropes, shoving her to the skid as Johnny's gunfire downed the pilot. The chopper spun, crashing onto the roof, metal screeching. Kamala shielded Lily, her body battered, as flames licked the wreckage. Johnny pulled them free, Pitt's team swarming. Elon, bloodied, lunged with a knife, but Kamala's pistol fired, the bullet piercing his shoulder. He collapsed, cuffed, his empire dust. The feds secured the penthouse, finding files that sealed the cartel's fate. Global roots, names, accounts. Kamala, gasping, checked Lily's pulse, her medical instincts overriding pain. The girl clung to her, whispering, "Taylor." Kamala's heart swelled. They'd done it. Back at the hospital, Taylor and Lily reunited, their embrace shattering Kamala's composure. Malala, awake but weak, smiled from her bed, her scars a mirror of their fight. The children, some with families, others in care, were safe, their futures reclaimed. A week later, a ceremony filled a city park. Survivors and advocates gathered under a clear sky. Taylor took the podium, her voice unwavering. "They tried to erase us, but we're here, stronger." She honored Kamala, Johnny, Malala, and the children, her words a beacon of resilience. Kamala, in the crowd, felt Johnny's shoulder brush hers, his nod a shared vow to hunt any cartel remnants. Malala, on crutches, applauded, her eyes fierce. Lily, beside Taylor, held a new teddy bear, her smile radiant. The crowd roared, banners waving, their victory a spark for change as Helters funded. Laws tightened, a task force formed. Kamala's chest tightened, not with pain but hope. Taylor stepped down, hugging her, whispering, "You kept us whole." Kamala's scars ached, but they were badges of triumph. Johnny, ever watchful, scanned the horizon, but even he softened, ruffling Lily's hair. The park's lights glowed as dusk fell, children playing, their laughter a song of healing. Later, Kamala's phone buzzed fed alert, not Elon's taunt, but a lead on his overseas allies. She forwarded it to Pitt, her oath as a doctor now a crusade. Taylor and Lily ran through the grass, their hands linked, a family forged in fire. Kamala joined them, her heart full. The cartel was broken, its victims rising, and though shadows lingered, hope blazed brighter. The city skyline stood tall, a promise of justice, hard-won and enduring. From a doctor's chilling X-ray discovery to dismantling a cartel's empire, Taylor's courage saved countless children. Thank you for listening. Like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Hit the bell to never miss our latest stories of justice and hope.